In today's episode, new manglement is always knows best. Have trailer will travel. Just not after this MC. Yes, I have a cell phone. No, you cannot reach me on it. So let's get started. New manglement is always knows best. Bit of background, I've worked in the pub trade since '87. I've been a kitchen manager, a pub manager and tested multiple new POS, point of sale, and TNA, time and attendance, systems for different companies. For my mental health, I decided a few years back to take a drop back down to a shift manager. It just wasn't worth the stress for the money, and it ended up causing me a full breakdown. Basically, I kinda know what I'm talking about. A few years back, the place I work at employed a new DM, deputy manager, one step below the PM, pub manager, and my line boss. Realistically, he only got the job because I refused a promotion. He was fresh out of uni with a lovely shiny new piece of paper showing he knew everything that it is possible to know about management, and obviously with his years, a massive 3 years, of experience working behind a bar, he could never be wrong. Our company has SOPs, standard operating procedures, that are basically the rules you need to follow to do every task. I've been there since they were first implemented and actually helped write several of them with regards to the POS and TNA systems, since like every set of rules there are exceptions in certain rare situations. Our pub, being a virtual 24-hour operation unit, is one of those where rare situations crop up regularly. I was on a run of close shifts following on from the DM's shift, and the PM was on holiday, so DM was in total charge. He decided to make his mark and sort things out. I received a call that he needed me in an hour earlier to discuss a few things. When I turned up for the meeting, he has a ream of paperwork in front of him, exception reports detailing closing down and dealing with the POS and TNA, corrections I had done to his work during the day, plus printouts of SOPs. He started laying into me about how I was breaking the SOPs every night, and how disappointed he was in me for not knowing or following the correct procedures like he did. How I should never correct my superior's work. This was a formal meeting with minutes being taken, and he threatened me with a full disciplinary if I didn't follow the SOPs exactly, emphasizing his point by pressing his finger dramatically on the printed out SOPs in front of him. I asked him in my nicest possible voice to clarify that he wanted me to follow those SOPs he was pointing at every night, which he answered rather condescendingly in the affirmative. Cue the MC. Dutifully, I took his printed out copies and swore I'd follow them to the letter. Every night for my closedowns, I used the printed out copies he had given me. Can any of you see where this is going yet? The next night was end of week, so all the TNA needed to be closed, and the end of week procedures for the POS completed. I was on days off and the DM was closing, so he'd have to do it all. About 1 a.m. I got a call from him because none of the end of week processes would work, and they had to be done before he left. He'd tried everything, and had even tried to call the PM to help him. The PM's response was, "Call a light vlogging, he knows the system inside out, and will tell you what you need to do." I took great pleasure in telling him the SOPs he had given me were for a regular pub, and we had a specific set of SOPs for 24-hour pubs detailing slight differences we needed to do, otherwise the end-of-week processes would fail, altering start times of some staff by 1 minute, so they fell on the correct start day, and altering the POS system start time by 1 minute, so it fell on the right day as well. This was something I did every night on close, and was why I had all the exception reports he was complaining about. Fixing it so that end-of-week worked was simple but incredibly repetitive, and would take an hour or so. My parting comment was, just follow the specific SOPs. It's all explained in there, and if you have an issue, call me back. I know those SOPs well because I wrote them. Next shift, I found out that he had left work over 3 hours late that night, and the PM had given him a rather stern talking to about learning to walk before he ran, and who to go to if he thought something was wrong. In the end, he became a decent DM, and I was sad to see him go when he got his own pub. He called me the other day to help him with an issue he was having with the TNA system, which is what brought this MC memory back. Have trailer will travel. Just not after this MC. I used to work for a government department. About 10 years ago, my wife and I bought our very first travel trailer, and we had planned a glamping vacation. After we both had booked the time off from our employers, there was a last-minute conference scheduled that I was required to attend. Rather than canceling my vacation or skipping the conference, I asked if I could take my trailer instead of flying. That way I could still have my trip, albeit a different destination, and still attend the conference. After the conference was over, we would carry on with our vacation. I was approved with the understanding that I would only be compensated for the equivalent cost of flying and staying in a hotel. While not covering the entire cost, especially fuel for towing a large trailer, I was very happy with the arrangement. At the end of the conference, we would travel to our original destination via a different route. All went well on our first long-distance trip of 1,300 kilometers, 800 miles, to the conference, and another 2,500 kilometers on our extended route home. I came home, claimed for 4 nights in campgrounds, meals and km equivalent to the airfare. Everyone was happy until the auditor checked claims about a month later. He told our claims people that employees are not allowed to accept less than they would be entitled to whatever the travel mode. So when they approved me going by my own vehicle, they needed to pay to full cost. Even though I was happy with the arrangement, it didn't matter. The auditor gave them a month to correct the claim. I was told there was a maximum number of km I was allowed to drive per day, so instead of claiming 1 day up and 1 day back, I claimed 3 days up and 3 days back for campgrounds and meals, plus I claimed back 4 days of vacation because I was working those days. I also got the government km rate for the entire distance, 1,300 up and back, and not the actual 2,500 indirect route home, not just the equivalent to airfare. Altogether I had to claim another $1,600. While I was perfectly happy with the original arrangement, I was forced to take more money, and saved 4 days of vacation. I was never allowed to take my trailer to a conference again. Yes, I have a cell phone. No, you cannot reach me on it. Inspired by Sure I Can Use My Cell Phone, a coworker's malicious compliance. I had a pretty good tech support job in the late 90s at a cool place to work. Since we had an on-call rotation, we had some nice perks. The company paid for a second phone line. Yeah, dial-up modems were still the thing. They also paid up to $X a month towards a cell phone, or provided a company cell phone. The only constant thing is change. The company was bought up by a large conglomerate. As the Borg assimilated us, they announced that they would no longer pay for personal cell phones, and company ones would only be given to those at the manager level or above. As an aside, how stupid is that? Determine who gets a tool by status, rather than the usefulness of the tool to the job? The rationale was that everyone has a cell phone nowadays, and incidental use for company business should not be a burden. We grumbled, but it was still a cool place to work, so most people went along. Most people, but not Bob. At first, when they collected everyone's contact number, meaning personal cell phone number, Bob gave them his desk phone number. Of course, emergency calls after hours went to voicemail. Typically, the operations center would call his home number next and usually get him. It took them a couple of on-call rotations to figure out that they didn't have his cell number. After a round of emails asking for it was ignored, he was summoned into the director's office and asked for it. He explained why he felt it was unfair that the company used his asset without reimbursement. He was told it would only be used for emergency, incidental use, and was a condition of employment. He reluctantly gave it up. Then came the malicious part. Cell phones were pretty basic at that time, talk and text, really simple games. Most of the smarts were in the network. Bob found for an extra $2 per month, his phone line could block callers, or send them directly to voicemail. Bob paid the $2 and set the company's outbound caller ID number to go directly to voicemail. When Bob was not on call, he turned off the audio alert for voicemail, and the only indication was a little envelope icon on the phone's 1.5 screen. On call, he got the alert, but only called back if he was away from home. Otherwise, he waited for the call on his landline. He said it was the best $2 a month he had spent. I left a year later, and Bob was still enjoying his cell phone on his terms. By the way, in 2021 dollars, a cell phone ran $1,000 and monthly service $60 to $100. Not that different from today, but the job paid $40-50,000 then, and you got a limited number of talk minutes and texts for your $60. Thanks for watching.